Welcome back, everyone. This is Rona, and we are going to finish up working on our image of Amanda Holliday. And what I have done here is I have searched Google Images for a wrench, and I wanted to trace a wrench in her hand because it makes it a little bit easier instead of just looking at a wrench. You can see I have put it on a layer, and I am now fading it down with the opacity and positioning it where I think it'll look most natural in her hand. Tilting it a little bit, dropping it down a little bit. I just want it to be a casual, loose grip on the wrench. And now I am putting a blank layer at the very top, and that's the layer that I'm going to draw onto. What happens when I start adding elements to an image such as this is I will do them on the blank layer so that anything underneath can be erased. Then I will merge them together. You can see here I'm working on the underside of the wrench, and I'm just drawing over the layer that already has Amanda Holliday on it, working on the inside details of the wrench and the end, and then lastly on that hole. And I looked at it and I started looking at it and I thought, what is it that I'm missing? And I'm going to go back and look at the wrench a little closer, because one of the things I noticed is that working wrenches like this, not only do they have the little spiral that you twist with your fingers to close and then open the mouth of the wrench, but there's certain little lines that all the mechanical parts slide in and out of, and I thought, oops, I forgot something. You can see I'm already starting to work on the other layer, erasing away the clothing that's behind the wrench. And that wrench just keeps looking bare to me, and I'm thinking, what is it that I've missed? What is it that I've missed with this wrench? And here comes those little parts that I'm talking about. Looking at the wrench again. You know, sometimes when you're an artist, you have to look at things 2 or 3 or 4 times before it all becomes clear to you how things work. The more you observe an item, the more you absorb the details of the item and how the item functions, the easier it becomes to draw it, because we unconsciously know something is wrong with that wrench if you don't put the extra lines in it to show the moving part and how that part slips in and out. Once that got on there, then the wrench looked like a real wrench. I've already deleted the layer with the wrench, and I've merged them all down. If you look into the layers palette, there's now only one layer, and that's the ink layer. In a previous video, I went through the process of drawing out the sketch and the form and doing the inking. So this is the second video in that quick drawing series. This one is not sped up 2 times. You're currently watching it in real time. So this is actually how fast I draw. On this layer, you can see that I'm beginning the tool pouch that she has on the top belt that she's wearing. She has 2 belts, and the one that's closest to her body really seems to have no function. But the top one with the unusual looking belt buckle seems to have the most function. I've taken a layer and I've made the one little tool pouch, and then I've just copied the layer using the round dialogue. Here I've gone back to my internet browser to look again at this image of Amanda Holliday. And what's interesting for me is that, of course, now that I've spent 2 days working on this, a little bit, maybe an hour one day and then maybe an hour the next day, I really look at that belt buckle and I go, okay, I shouldn't have drawn those perfect circles, and I'm going to have to go in and fix that later. Here I'm drawing that one little tool pouch that's on the very outside of her hip, and it's just an open top pouch that you can slip apparently a very large set of pliers into. And to me that would seem like as soon as you bend over it would fall out, but I know I've seen these for sale in do-it-yourself stores. I know they exist, but I mean, that kind of scares me. I would think that it's not like a hammer loop. A hammer loop, you put the hammer in, and the weight of the hammer head and the length of the handle keep the hammer from falling out of the hammer loop. But this little leather pocket is just aching for stuff to fall out of it for some reason. One of the other details that came about later in working on this image was fixing the gloves. Now, what I thought originally was a watch turns out to be just a strap with a stud closure, a snap closure on the end, on the outer edge. On the other glove wrist, she has a metal piece, and I don't know, maybe it's a wrench head or something, some adjustable tool that has a wristband on it, and it's just easy to grab hold of. I have no clue what it is on her other wrist. You just see a hint of it underneath the flange of her glove, so it's slightly drawn in there. I have grabbed one of the specialty brushes that has a sewing stitch, and this is cheating little sewing stitch. You can see that it just marks out a perfect little sewing line, and I did that on the belt and on her pants pockets edge, anywhere that the fabric is going to have a seam. Now, on everyone's pants, there's usually an inside leg seam and the outside leg seam. So you have to think about which is what is seen when you're looking at the image. Here, Amanda Holliday, of course, you're going to see the inside of the pant leg and the outside of the other leg pant. Here, because her torso's turned, I've put a little seam going from the armpit down to the hip on the shirt, and a little bit of just where the two pieces of fabric are sewn together in the front. And this is my favorite little speckle brush that I use for freckles, for dog spots, mud splashes, you name it. It's just this perfect multi-purpose speckle. And if you watch closely, I am putting speckles on a layer and looking at the size of them, and sometimes I think they're too big, sometimes I think they're too small. But I also change the opacity down so that they're more transparent. I don't want her freckles to be super dark on her face. I've also made these freckles part of the inking process instead of saving them for the coloring process. And that's helpful if you're doing a black and white image or just a simple ink image, and then later you can color it in. Now, my end product will be something colored in doing it in the ink layer is not necessary, but it's a personal choice. Same as the bad choice I made to color in the lenses on her goggles. I regretted that later, just like I thought I would, but you know, when you're drawing, you do things. They make sense at the time. One of the things that I've really had to learn, especially this year, in doing a lot more digital and pushing my digital art every day, is learning that art is not always precious. Every piece of art you make is a stepping stone and a learning process to a greater piece of artwork you're going to make down the road. For every one good, wonderful piece of artwork, there's probably going to be 100 sketches, 100 other learning opportunities that you're going to throw away or hate. You're going to say, why did I do that? So you learn very quickly that your art is not always precious, and you shouldn't always hold on to everything grasped in your hands tightly. You make the art, you do the best you can in the moment, and then you catalog it and you go to the next one. And by doing that, you're pushing yourself to learn. If you make only 1 or 2 pieces of artwork a year, of course they're going to seem more precious because you've only made 2 things in 12 months, 1 thing per 6 months. But when you start really pushing for your sketches and really pushing for your art skills, and you're making 1 or 2 items a day, maybe 1 really good item that you spent 2 or 3 hours on, and then a whole bunch of sketches where you spent several hours on. Sometimes you're making 4 or 5 items a day. Those are warm-up sketches. They're not precious. They're what gets you in the mood. They're what gets your creativity flowing. They're necessary stepping stones for the next project and for the next thing. So you learn, you know, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to erase them, and it's okay to do it over again. And you become confident in your ability to erase and work over what you've done. I can remember a time where I'd be like, oh my gosh, I worked 7 or 8 hours on that, and I'm not going to do that again. I can't do that. It's awful. And each of my little pieces of artwork seemed so precious to me because it had taken so much time and so much work to do it. But now what I could do in 7 or 8 hours, I do in 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour, and then it's not so precious. And so trust in your ability to improve, and let things not be so precious. Push, 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 push yourself forward. I noticed on her shirt there was lighter areas on the sides. You can see here I'm filling those in real quick. And as I go, I'm like, oh, no, I don't like this color of gray. Nope, it should have been darker. Because I didn't want to go with a really straight, flat black to begin with. One of the things I've really noticed, especially in art history, there was an artist, and I'm going to have to tell this story. In Memphis, Tennessee, back when the Pyramid was a fantastic art museum. I've heard it's closed or something since then. But there was an Italian Renaissance tour, and one of the pieces of artwork was this just fantastic man in black, wearing a black doublet, and it was a 3/4 pose, so you didn't see all of his legs. It ended about his lower hip, but you could tell he was wearing these trunk hose and fantastic all handmade lace and everything. But it was all done in shades of black and deep gray. And when I was reading the catalog information for it, they were praising the artist's ability to see so many shades of black. And that's when it really dawned on me that, well, they're right. Black is not just black. You have cool blue blacks. You have warm brown blacks. You have gray blacks. You have purple blacks. You have so many different shades of dark gray. You know, the book is called 50 Shades of Gray, but really and truly, it's more like 250 shades of gray is what you've got in most computer like Pantone colors and colors for printing. So don't always throw down the deepest, flattest black you can find. Vary up your blacks. Take your color wheel and move it into the blue so that you get a cool black, or move it into a brown so that you have a warm black. And if you ever get a chance to see a black cat laying in the sunshine, you will notice that a black cat is not truly black. There are areas where their underfur is a medium gray, and they're blacks or warm blacks, and then they've got some cool blacks, and so many different blacks that it's quite fascinating, and it really expands your color knowledge. Back to our awesome Amanda Holliday, and you know, I'm just filling in my flats, and now I have taken one of my favorite painting brushes, and I'm just throwing in some warm highlights on top of those colors, just to get a sense of 3-dimension. It's a brush that's available on one of my videos that I made for brushes. It gives you the link to my DeviantArt account where you can pick it up. And my flats are almost finished here. I go up to my palette and I grab some warm skin tones and start adding that into her armpit and shoulder. And of course the one shoulder has a beautiful indigo blue, almost black tattoo, which I've kept in the indigo range, because I suspect in real life, if you were to get that tattoo, you would not use a pure black ink, like an India pure black ink, but maybe something with a little bit of indigo blue in it. I like those old-fashioned indigo blue tattoos. My dad had a couple, and from when he was in the Navy, and that color is just so iconic. That deep cobalt blue, indigo blue. Going back in and adding the dark blue, gray back in. Just filling in color. And we're about ready to stop this video, and we will be doing detail work in our next video. So thank you guys, and join me for the rest. Bye-bye.